This is Eileen Griffin with the Heartland View from the Heartland Daily News, bringing you information and analysis about public policy stories that affect your life, your health, your freedoms, and the nation's economy. So we're going to jump right in. We've got several stories to share with you and information that you'll find interesting, I believe. I know your time is valuable, so we're going to go quickly and give you the most important things up front. And as you know, there's more details if you have time and would like to read on heartlanddailynews.com. So we've got news for 9 states that are cutting income taxes to boost their economic recovery. So this is the way that they're looking at in these states, that they want to get their economies back on their feet and growing, and their solution is cutting taxes. Now, you know, we had mentioned before in a previous segment that some of the states had wanted to do this right up front, and they were given a little pushback, stimulus money not to be spent this way, but these states are moving forward with reducing their state income taxes to help their citizens continue to move forward post-pandemic and into a growth economy. So the states, if you happen to live in these states, this is good news for you. Arizona, Ohio, Idaho, Oklahoma, Iowa, Louisiana, Missouri, Montana, and New Hampshire. 2 other states also working on this potential tax reduction, which would be North Carolina and Wisconsin. So they're currently considering it, so hopefully they'll also reduce their taxes. So good news for those of you in those states. For those of you not in those states, continue to work on it, maybe write to your legislators. So the author Brad Palumbo, he writes that the takeaway from this is, quote, "There's truly astonishing levels of fraud and waste that have corrupted the government's biggest stimulus spending plans during the pandemic to date. And Ivy League economic projections show that the wasteful spending plans will actually hurt the economy over the long run. However, by lowering their income taxes, these 9 states are showing us a way local governments can actually boost their economies during a downturn. That's a lesson worth remembering the next time a recession rolls around and the politicians want to confiscate and spend trillions more from taxpayer wallets," end quote. So moving on, there's a little more budget and tax news. Let's continue on with this story. More about the COVID pandemic relief, things that have been directed through taxpayer dollars being funded this way. So another story, and this is interesting, $69 billion, this is a record-setting amount, is going to go to education aid. So all of this money that was under the COVID relief bill going to the states, all the different states for their colleges and universities. So no surprise, the state that came out ahead, the biggest amount went to California. They received $9.5 billion. So far, all colleges and universities, of the amount allocated to them, they've so far spent $18.9 billion of your money. So one clear message of the Biden administration, if you haven't followed this all the way along, is the message is they like to spend your money. So there's a lot of money that's flowing through this system, going out to all kinds of different things. It's a lot of money. But Patrick Buchanan says, keep an eye on this. He says, maybe the good times are over for Joe Biden. So his article talks about this change that's happened. We've only had a new president for a few months. And what happened? Well, President Biden took office. He had a winning hand. The vaccine was already created thanks to President Trump's Operation Warp Speed. They already had the vaccine on the run. They were already distributing vaccines out to the public. We were already feeling good about the pandemic being over. Businesses were starting to open. People felt optimistic after a year of lockdowns. People felt that there was hope that they were going to get out, and we had future post-pandemic. So there was a lot of optimism at the time he took office. There was a lot of forward-thinking people and businesses. There was the economy poised to just leap forward after it being held back so long. So it was poised to just spring forward with a lot of growth and opportunity. So the spirits were high, business was poised to grow, everything looked positive. But by last week, President Biden's disapproval rating had risen to the 40s. And half the country believe now that America is on the wrong track. So he's got some bad economic news. We had a growth economy, but now we're seeing inflation. So while the current snapshot in time still looks rosy, a lot of economists are predicting and warning about potential concerns, things that they're seeing. So, such as what? Inflation, greater inflation than we've seen in decades, and not for a short period, but an extended period where we're anticipating some inflation. Potentially, the interest rates could be rising. So we see these things on the horizon. The other thing, President Biden's name will always be attached to this unprecedented crisis at the border. He'll be forever associated with this border crisis because this will last for years, maybe generations, the consequences. So the problem at the southern border, illegal immigrants streaming across the border. And prior to this, fairly recently, President Trump had put a stop to it. He came up with solutions. He was known for being tough on the border. And President Biden basically reversed course, took away all that President Trump had achieved with no solution other than to say, Kamala's going to handle it. And we haven't seen her down there very much. So that was the only solution he had. Other than that, what do we see? A border out of control. We see a border open not just to illegal immigrants, but we see narcotics, all kinds of drugs and illegal activity increasing due to the open border. So now it's not just all these activities happening in the border. We're also seeing enormous spikes in crime in a number of cities. So while you've got the addition of potential crime and growth of crime from the border, you've also got inside these cities, and these are largely Democrat cities, with outrageously high crime rates. And people are already entirely frustrated with the crime and the lack of political will to support law enforcement and to support efforts to curtail the rising lawlessness. They're not trying to fix it, doesn't seem like. So the rise in crime is almost exclusively happening in Democrat-run cities. And some of these cities have been run by Democrats for decades. And the defund the police movement, also driven by Democrats. We also see these mandates for critical race theory, driven by Democrats. If you don't know what critical race theory is, largely, in short, it's about defining who people are based on race, segregating based on race. And they're teaching people to be suspicious and in some cases really hate someone from a different race. That's not what America's about. That's not what America's ever been about. But that's what's being driven and being taught sometimes in government and in some of the private companies out in corporate America. It's being taught now to school children. That's all the Democrat agenda. So if all these things are happening spearheaded by Democrats, Pat Buchanan says, quote, if the Democratic Party goes into the election of 2022 defending Biden's border failures, decrying rogue cops rather than addressing the shootings and killings, and explaining away inflation and rising interest rates as something that's not our fault, the result would seem to be foreordained, end quote. We'll see. 2022 elections are right around the corner, not that far away. So before I close, I have a comment on comments. Someone posted on the comment board, we talked in a previous segment about elections and what's going to happen on the elections in 2022. And the comment was, don't you realize there's no such thing as free and fair elections anymore? And I understand that point. I understand there's a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment in how the 2020 election was handled. A lot of anomalies. They're still at this point doing forensic audits of some of these elections in different states. There's still investigations happening. So certainly understand where that comment comes from. But my response to that is there's hope. Remember, SB 1 was defeated. That was the federal attempt to take over elections. That was defeated, which means we'll still go back to the state level. And there's a lot of state leaders taking control. You've got governors and people that are spearheading in different legislators around the country and legislatures who are taking on election integrity and trying to fix what went wrong in 2020, trying to repair these and make a free and fair election and ensure the integrity of the election. The Heartland Institute is also taking on election integrity and working hard to give legislators the tools and help prevent another 2020 election from happening. So I'm not giving up on free and fair elections, and you shouldn't either. So we're going to have some optimism. We know people are working on it, and let's hope that we see 2022 things are more improved. And thank you for that comment. It was an excellent point. I know it is discouraging when we think about some of the anomalies and problems, but again, interesting point to discuss, and I think we look future forward and try to be optimistic. And that's it for this week for the Heartland View. Again, if you would like to see more details about these stories, as always, please go to the website, heartlanddailynews.com. And to support the Heartland Institute, please go to their website. The homepage is heartland.org. Thank you for your time. Have a great week.